You're with Aaron Kearney on ABC Newcastle Drive. So how's this for an amazing story? Go with me on this, okay? As some of you know, I won an award at the International Sports Press Association Global Sports Storytelling Awards last week. Now, they looked at 1,200 pieces of work from 119 countries across the world, and in the end, 21 people from across the entire planet got invited to Lausanne in Switzerland for the big awards ceremony. There was an African, some Russians, quite a few Italians, a couple of Brits and Germans, and there were 2 Australians. I was one. So in the countdown to the big broadcast of the event, we're doing the rehearsals and the big screen's on and all that. I hear an Aussie accent. So I figured this is the other guy. Wandered up to him, said, "Hi, g'day. Lovely fellow. We have a bit of a chat." And I said to him, "So you're based in Adelaide, right? Did I read that somewhere?" He said, No, Newcastle." I said, "No way. Where do you live?" He says the suburb where he lives. It's the same suburb where I live. He says the street where he lives. We live 200 metres away from each other. He says, yeah, I've listened to you on the radio. So out of a competition that covered the entire planet and in the shadows of the Swiss Alps, there's 2 Novocastrians that live a few blocks from each other but had never met till that moment. And the project he won for was so good, we thought we'd catch up on home soil. Local filmmaker, writer and director, Steve Pasvolsky. Oh, I said I'd get that right, didn't I? Is with me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Aaron. You got it 100% correct.
We're a long way from Switzerland right now. Bit warmer, did you notice?
Oh, it was actually quite welcome being in -3 for a little while. It took me a couple of days to get back into the swing of +40 on the first day back, but glad to be back. How amazing was that? Thinking to you.
I want to talk about your project because it's wonderful. It's an amazing film and we're tipping people into things they should see. They should definitely see it. But yeah, a moment of amazing coincidence. Did you know that I was nominated?
I did see that there was another Aussie, and you know, I do know your name and I have listened to you in the past because you've been away for a while, and it did ring a bell somewhere, but it was just, I don't know, it was just a shock.
Out of context, right?
Yeah.
And it was, how did you find the experience
of the actual awards? Well, it was a bit bizarre. I mean, we were in a palace called the Beau Rivage, so it was very well to do. I don't often wear a suit. I bought a suit.
Sure.
And it was just it was very slick, but what was pleasantly surprising was the high quality of the projects that were there. Like to be amongst that company was, you know, really a great privilege, and everyone there was so welcoming, and you know, they really wanted to put the spotlight on sports journalism, and they did it. So I was just really stoked to be there with the haka, which is such a great subject. I mean, the film's okay, but the subject of the haka is a real amazing thing. All
right, we'll talk about how you managed to be 200 metres away and I didn't know about it, but let's, since you've raised it, talk about the haka. I've got a little excerpt from your piece here.
The haka is the most famous pre-match ritual in any sport. But how much do we really know about it? When I played against the All Blacks, I had little idea of its historical or its cultural significance. Twice, as captain of the Wallabies, I led our team in turning our backs on the haka.
The Australians ignore the New Zealand haka.
We were beaten both times.
Justin Marshall, Zinzanbrook gets the fourth try.
I had many great moments with the Wallabies and was part of teams that won the World Cup. But not facing the haka was my greatest regret. Now, more than 2 decades on, I'm keen to confront my past and actually find out what the haka means to Maoris, All Blacks and New Zealanders. I guess you could say I'm embarking on my road to redemption.
The great Australian Wallabies captain, John Eales there. It's delicious subject matter. How did it come into being?
Well, the production company, Mint Pictures in Sydney, contacted me, and that came after they knew that I was a sports nut, and also, you know, within that, a rugby nut. I mean, I love all sports, and so Discovery put it out to tender, and I guess they got 3 or 4 companies to pitch that they were the right company to do it. I was part of that pitch.
So just help me understand. Yeah. They had the idea for the film.
John Eales did.
Oh,
actually.
right. Okay.
So John Eales, you know, he genuinely did have a big hang-up about this. This was the only blemish on a very illustrious rugby career. So he pitched that to Discovery. So they picked it up. They said, yes, we're going to make a feature documentary. Then they put that out to tender, really, and 3 or 4 companies pitched, budget, what they would do with it, who's directing it, and Mint contacted me to be part of their pitch. We won the pitch, and before I knew it, can I tell you a story about John Eales's closet?
Please, yes.
So next minute I'm in John Eales's closet picking out clothes for him to wear in the docker.
That's cool.
Yeah, and his wife walked in, actually. So
Just on that, what role do you play? I described you as a filmmaker, writer and director. What did you do in this piece?
Okay, well, together with the producer, Dan Goldberg, we formulated how we would tell this story, where we would go, part history, part real events, part things unfolding now that we could orchestrate. And once we'd worked out the scenes that we wanted, it was my job to actually write up a blueprint of how they would play out. Now, of course, they didn't play out exactly like that because it's observational, but I had to at least put a blueprint down of where we would go and who we wanted to talk to. So, for example, we wanted to talk to a descendant of the actual chief who composed the kamate, the most well-known haka that the All Blacks do. Then we wanted to go to Jonah Lomu's grave. So I would write up, and then we needed to choose, who is he going to partner up with in New Zealand? We need an All Black legend to take John around so that they could have conversations wherever they went. So I sort of just made up conversations that they might have about Jonah Lomu. Then we wanted to go to, because the haka is very connected to war veterans, we wanted to go to an Anzac Day ceremony, which we did do with Buck, who's actually a returned serviceman. He's one of the most famous All Blacks, actually, who served. Yeah. So I wrote it. Sorry to interrupt. I wrote it, and then we flew over there, and then we go to each of these locations with people that we had, pre-prepared to meet with, and then let scenes play out between John, who was sort of going, tell me about the haka, because I need to understand it. That's the only way I'm going to repent for my actions of turning my back.
And apart from the fact that it's taken you around the world and this isn't the only award that it's been up for, what did you get from it? What was it like to be involved in this project?
Oh, well, it was amazing because it's part rugby, but part cultural. So to actually understand, I've watched rugby now for 45 years as a massive Wallabies fan. I've faced the haka as an audience member, but never knew what it meant. So now I've got an opportunity to dig into that, and just the cultural significance of it is so. It teaches us a great lesson in this country, but it's really it's about ancestry, and it's about drawing in the power of your ancestors to join you in battle, and the actual kamate, that particular haka, because there's many hakas, really asks the question of life. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? Am I going to be a success? Am I going to be a failure? So it resonates for everyone, and it really resonated for me. And just finding out about other people and other countries, how they think and how they've dealt with their countries in terms of coming together, it was amazing. The journey was amazing.
How different did the final product look to the storyboard that you had created in your mind ahead of time?
Well, I love making D&M, deep and meaningful docos.
Yeah, sure.
So this was for Discovery Channel. They know their audience very well, and you need to understand their audience. But when I delivered the first edit of the film, the commissioning editor politely said to me, "We're not SBS, mate."
Yeah, right.
I'd gone a bit deep into the culture, and they wanted more rugby and more. So that was fine. I just went back to the drawing board, and I learnt a lot because we're not out there just making films willy-nilly to try and find an audience.
No,
it's a commission. You need to,
and it's not an ego project, is it? It's a purposeful one.
Exactly, and the more ratings that they get, the more odds are that I'll get another gig. Yeah. So I've got to deliver to their brief, and their brief is very much about audience. And as are most channels, you can really identify 7, 9, 10, ABC and SBS with what their audience is and what time slot. So that's an interesting challenge as a director.
You're listening to local filmmaker, writer and director Steve Pasvolsky, who has just returned from Switzerland, where he was nominated for an International Sports Press Association award chosen from across the globe for his film The Haka. And so too, how you managed to be in Newcastle and how we managed to have, worked in this same industry for so long and lived 200 metres. We drive past each other's house and had never discovered each other. Why are you here?
My wife and I, were in Sydney in a one-bedroom flat with 3 babies under 4. And she's from Newcastle. My mother-in-law, Helen, lives here. And one day we just came up, saw a house for sale, walked in, went, oh, no way, we won't be able to afford that. But lo and behold, we sold a one-bedroom flat in Sydney and we're up here a month later. And it's been amazing, the worlds that have opened up here, the things that I've discovered. I mean, the Hunt is an incredible area of people doing amazing things, not just in the arts, but in the things that they're doing. I mean, I've been involved in films about Brumbies, Indigenous programs. So it just became home very quickly.
Can you be a global filmmaker and live in inner Newcastle?
Look, it is hard because the main parties that commission docos are in Sydney. So I've got to commute to Sydney quite a lot. But
do you have to be in the room to get that work?
Eventually you need to go there, and they just need to get over the hump that you're available at the drop of a hat, even if you're getting on a train at 4 a.m. But can I say this? I mean, most of this film was made in New Zealand. It wasn't made in Sydney. So it didn't really matter where I was. So, I mean, we're trying to make it work out of here. It's just, it's a compromise in some respects, but yes, it's possible. It's definitely possible. You just got to get into the right places at the right time. Yeah.
What's your next project?
Well, I'm currently working on a scientific medical documentary about a particular therapist on the Gold Coast. Well, there you go, on the Gold Coast. I don't have to be in Sydney to make that. Who is not a doctor, but has been really challenged by the medical profession because he's had such astounding results in treating paraplegics and quadriplegics, actually people with any ailment, with a sort of new age therapy. And yes, I'm making a doco about that, just trying to discover, if it actually works, what are the stats around it, what's the proof around it, and it's amazing. So.
Well, now that we've found each other, even though we had to go to the other side of the world to do so, it won't be the last time that we catch up.
Sorry, Aaron, I just want to ask you about your project. Can you tell us a little bit more? Are you being modest?
No, modest. I'm my own favourite subject. No,
Can you tell us how that happened?
Yeah. So I was working similar to you. I've been working across 15 different countries, commuting out of Newcastle, largely in the Pacific, but also in Southeast Asia for the last 3.5 years. And mine was I got to embed, as many people will appreciate, Papua New Guinea is probably the worst place in the world to be a woman. 8 out of 10 women will require hospital treatment for either sexual or gender abuse throughout their life. And rugby league is the national passion and obsession, and they created a women's rugby league team. And I got to embed with them and spend time with them. And because I'd spent quite a bit of time in Papua New Guinea, they trusted me in a way they don't. Most of the Palangis, as they call the white boys who come in and try and talk to them. And, so I did a piece on the inside of that team. And, it's just that moment, as I say, apart from meeting a Nova Castrian, but we were in a palace under the Swiss Alps.
Compared to Papua.
I know, right? And even compared to New Zealand. So we shan't be strangers anymore. I'll be really interested to see where that current project goes. And, we'll catch up many times. But thanks for coming in, and good luck with the jet lag. And we'll talk again really soon.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Thanks for letting me on.
Really nice to meet you far and near. That is local filmmaker, writer and director Steve Pasvolsky. And he was nominated for his film The Harker.